held your pulse scorching at the crack of a branch, convinced that something, anything, lurked just beyond the beam of your flashlight. What if the forest itself whispered your name in voices you couldn't identify? Before I delve deeper into the pines, I have a small favor to ask. I'm on the hunt for 1,000 subscribers, and it's completely free, and I want to know when and where you're watching. If tonight's journey beneath the canopy of Ravenwood sends shivers down your spine, hit that subscribe button so we can uncover even darker secrets together.
As twilight bled into night, we built a roaring fire and shared stories. Kayla's near miss with a raccoon in Alaska, Javier's brush with a rattlesnake in the Sonoran, Rowan's cliffside slip in the Rockies. Each tale drew us closer, emboldening our courage. Then I spoke of Ravenwood's legend. They say, centuries ago, a woodcutter's clan vanished overnight, leaving only grotesque wooden masks nailed to the trees. The masks, the elders whispered, bind restless spirits longing for flesh. A chill ran through me, even as I told it. When silence fell, a distant hum drifted through the pines. Not wind, not insect, it was an almost musical tone, rising and falling like a beckoning lullaby. "Do you hear that?" I asked. They nodded, uneasy. The hum faded. We shrugged it off, blaming echoes. Yet none of us slept well that night. The next morning, light filtered green through the canopy. Over coffee, I showed them the footprints I'd found at dawn, elongated, misshapen, half sunk into the loam. Each print measured nearly a foot across, yet they led away from our clearing, deeper into unmapped forest. Maybe an elk? Javier suggested. Or Bigfoot, Rowan teased, yet none of us laughed. Driven by curiosity and a hint of dread, we packed day packs and followed the trail. Beneath ferns and brambles, the prints guided us for over an hour until we stumbled into a clearing we'd never seen on any map. There it stood, a derelict log cabin, its wood bleached silver by decades of rain. Ivy strangled its walls, and the windows were boarded, one board hanging loose, inviting us in. With a shared glance, we stepped through the yawning doorway. Inside, motes of dust danced in our lantern beams. On wooden pegs along the walls hung dozens of masks, each carved with contorted features, gaping mouths, twisted brows, eyes too deep to fathom. "Why so many?" Kayla whispered, voice trembling. I approached a mask whose eyes seemed alive, shimmering in the lantern glow. The air grew colder, tighter, as though the cabin itself inhaled. A sudden crash behind us made us spin. One of the boarded windows had splintered. Outside, 2 pinpricks of light glowed, eyes watching. "Get out!" Javier hissed. We bolted for the door, but it slammed shut, as if pulled by invisible hands. In panic, Rowan yanked at the latch. It wouldn't budge. Then Kayla's lantern beam caught something on the floor, a trapdoor outlined beneath the dusty planks. "Please tell me we're not going down there," Rowan murmured. "We don't have a choice," I replied, voice shaking. We pried the door open and descended into a narrow stairwell. The walls closed in, slick with moss. With each step, the distant hum returned, stronger, urgent. At the bottom, we entered a cavern lit by phosphorescent fungi, casting sickly green light over damp stone. In the center stood a circular altar, stained dark. Atop it lay 2 masks, one small, carved in a silent scream, another massive, with sweeping horns. Javier trembled. "We need to leave them alone." But as he spoke, the small mask quivered, as though breathing. A sudden gust rattled the cavern. The chanting, once distant, erupted around us, echoing off the walls. Shadows shifted, coalesced into figures, 8 silent forms, each wearing a mask like ours. Frozen, we watched as they stepped forward, their wooden limbs creaking. Their faces, empty hollows where flesh should be. Kayla stifled a scream. I fumbled for my flashlight, dead. Rowan's phone light flickered, barely enough. One figure reached toward the altar, lifted the small mask, and placed it beside the horned one. The chanting ceased instantly. Everything stopped, sound, breath, heartbeat. Then, without warning, the horned mask clattered to the floor, shattering into splinters. The figures dissolved into mist, and the cavern pitch dark collapsed around us. We scrambled up the stairs, bursting into the cabin as if expelled by a violent wind. The door swung open of its own accord, and we flew into the clearing, gasping for the sweet taste of open air. But the forest had changed. A dense fog curled around tree trunks, swallowing our campsite. The fire pit lay cold, the tents collapsed. Scattered among them were the shattered mask fragments, sharp, splintered teeth in the grass. Which way to the trail? Javier panted. I don't know, I admitted. A low moan drifted through the fog. From the mist emerged a silhouette, a figure draped in tattered robes, face hidden by a mask identical to the horned one. It glided forward, pausing at the edge of the clearing. We stood, hearts hammering, too terrified to move. The figure raised one hand, then pointed toward the forest. It turned and vanished into the gray swirl. Follow it, a voice in my head urged, cold, detached. Against every instinct, we plunged back under the canopy. Branches clawed at us, roots tangled our feet, but the silhouette glimmered faintly ahead, beckoning. After what felt like an eternity, the trees thinned. Before us lay a circle of abandoned cabins, none more than ruins, roofs caved in, doors yawning. At the center stood a well, its stone walls slick with moss. The silhouette hovered beside the well, and we realized this was more than a guide. It led us here for a reason. Do we climb down? Kayla asked, voice barely a whisper. The figure nodded and dissolved into mist. Below, in the well, we saw a glimmer, the horned mask laying atop slick stones. Someone has to retrieve it, I said, dread knotting in my chest. Or this nightmare never ends. Javier shook his head. I'm not going near that. Roland swallowed. It's now or never. I tied a rope around a sturdy beam and lowered Rowan first. Her lantern illuminated jagged rocks. At the bottom, the mask lay, whole and undisturbed. She grabbed it, and the well shuddered. Water rippled up the walls, as though the earth itself warned against theft. Rowan climbed back, mask in hand. As soon as she emerged, the well's surface stilled, and the air around us warmed, the fog beginning to lift. We raced back along the hidden path, the forest's hush now gentle, as though it approved our choice. When we burst into our original clearing, the sun was cresting the horizon, painting the sky in rose and gold. The masks lay scattered, except for the horned one in Roland's trembling hands. With a final look at the ancient pines, she heaved the mask into the campfire. The flames roared unexpectedly high, licking the mask until it cracked and curled, releasing a plume of black smoke that spiraled upward and vanished. In the sudden stillness, I realized the forest felt different. Lighter. Freed. We left Ravenwood that morning without a word, each lost in our own thoughts. The ride back felt surreal, no sign of the horrors we'd faced, only the rising sun and the highway stretching ahead. But sometimes, when the wind rustles through the city trees, I swear I hear a faint chant. And on nights when I can't sleep, I dream of hollow faces watching me from dark corners. Did we free Ravenwood's spirits, or did we bind ourselves to them forever? I don't have the answer. All I know is this: some boundaries are meant to be respected, and some masks are better left unturned. If your heart still races, imagine what dark tales lie waiting beyond the next hill. Don't forget to subscribe for free and help me reach 1,000 subscribers so we can venture together into the unknown. Sweet dreams, if you dare.
Have you ever heard a whisper carried on mist so thick it clings to your skin, yet felt no breath against your cheek? What would you do if a single lantern's glow in the swamp became the only thing guiding you back to safety? They call it the willowite lantern, an old brass lamp said to glow with blue flame, drifting through the marsh at twilight. Some say it guides lost souls home. Others swear it steals your very shadow, leaving only an empty shell wandering the reeds. I'm Jake, a wannabe documentarian with a taste for the uncanny. Alongside me are three friends who thought a weekend in the marsh would be a harmless adventure. Tomas, the skeptic with a wild grin, Priya, whose instincts never fail her, and Luke, quiet, camera always rolling. We arrived at Crescent Lake just as the sun dipped below the cypress trees. The boardwalk creaked underfoot, and the air smelled of damp moss and something else, old and forgotten. We set up camp beside a rusted marina, its boats half sunken. As darkness fell, Priya noticed something odd. One of the docks, where we'd left our canoe, seemed shorter. Sections of plank had vanished overnight, as though swallowed by the marsh itself. Maybe it's rot. Tomas shrugged, but Luke's camera zoomed in on muddy footprints leading into the reeds. Too large, too uneven to be in animals. Let's keep an eye out, Priya said, her voice low. I felt her gaze on me, warning, trust nothing. That evening, we built a small fire and shared stories. Tomas's close call on Everest, Priya's encounter with a rattlesnake in India, Luke's rooftop trespass in Tokyo. I spoke of the willowite, how it appears only when the moon's edge kisses the horizon. At precisely that moment through the fog, a flicker of blue caught my eye, half a mile away, floating above the cattails. Is that? I whispered. The lantern drifted closer, bobbing gently. Its glow pulsed like a heartbeat. Someone's playing a prank. Tomas scoffed, yet none of us moved. The light hovered at the water's edge, then retreated, luring us deeper into the marsh. Compelled by a mixture of fear and fascination, we piled into the canoe and followed the lantern's path. The paddles sliced through glassy water, echoing in the stillness. Every so often, the glow receded, then advanced, taunting us. Priya clutched a compass. We're east of camp, she said, but none of these paths look familiar. Behind us, the dock had disappeared entirely. Panic fluttered in my chest, but the lantern's light was too mesmerizing to abandon. We drifted under a tunnel of ancient willows, their branches dripping like sorrowful tears. Shadows danced on the water, shapes slid just beneath the surface. Suddenly, Luke cried out. His foot had struck something solid. I leaned over. The hole scraped against the sunken pier, its wood blackened and slimy. As we pushed free, a soft sobbing rose all around us, a chorus of laments drifting through the willows. Turn back, Priya whispered, eyes wide. But the lantern glowed brighter now, beckoning. At last, the lantern led us to a small island crowned by a cairn of slick stones. Each stone bore a name scratched in rusty letters, names of people missing in these parts, fishermen, hikers, even a rescue dog. My breath caught when I saw Margot Reynolds, 1973, among them. On the topmost stone rested the willowite lantern, its flame dancing in the night air. We exchanged uneasy glances, then Tomas reached out. Before his fingers touched the brass, a guttural growl shattered the silence. From the reeds emerged a gaunt figure, skin like damp bark, eyes glowing the same azure as the lantern's flame. It moved with jerky grace, head tilted as if listening to a distant song. Priya shoved Tomas back. "Don't touch it!" she yelled. The wraith advanced, its mouth opening in a silent scream. Blue flame flickered across its limbs, as if the lantern's fire lived in its flesh. Luke fumbled with his camera, capturing every moment. "It wants the lantern," he panted. "If Tomas takes it, we're doomed." Against our pleas, Tomas gripped the lantern's handle. The moment he lifted it, the wraith emitted a shriek that rattled our bones. The water above the sunken pier churned, and dozens of pale hands, faces twisted in anguish, reached for us from below. We plunged back into the canoe, paddling with frantic strokes as the wraith, and the drowned souls chased us. The water bubbled, willows swayed, and the lantern's flame cast monstrous reflections on every reed. "Cut right!" Priya shouted, seeing a narrow channel. We veered between two ancient cypress branches whipping our faces. Behind us, the reeds parted as if the marsh itself were trying to swallow us whole. Just when our arms burned and our hearts felt they'd burst, we saw the edge of Crescent Lake's open water. The wraith hesitated at the boundary, its form flickering, unable to cross into deeper waters. Tomas dropped the lantern, and it clattered into the canoe, extinguishing with a pop. In that black silence, the wraith dissolved into a swirl of mist. The drowned hands retreated, the weeping ceased, and the marsh exhaled a final, mournful sigh. We returned to camp at first light, exhausted and shaken. The dock remained gone, as if we never arrived. In our photos, the lantern's blue glow appears in every frame, hovering above the water, reflecting on our terrified faces. Late that night, I dreamt I saw the willow light floating down my street, calling my name in that cold, lilting song. I woke to find a single, muddy footprint on my doorstep. If your heart still pounds, imagine what other lights shimmer in the depths of Hollow Marsh. Don't forget to subscribe for free and help me reach 1,000 subscribers, so we can shine our lamps into even darker places. Sweet nightmares, if you dare. Have you ever heard the ocean's roar drown out your own heartbeat? Felt the lighthouse's beams slice through pitch-black waves like a sentinel's gaze? What if, in that isolated glow, you caught sight of something, or someone, that shouldn't be there? Before we set sail into tonight's tale, a quick favor. I'm striving for 1,000 subscribers, and hitting that subscribe button is completely free. If this story reels you in, subscribe now so we can explore even stranger shores together. They call it Hawkins Point Lighthouse, perched on a jagged promontory, battered by wind and sea spray. Built in 1892, it warned ships away from the rocks, and they say, from something hidden beneath the waves. I'm Arya, an amateur folklorist chasing legends. With me are two companions, Ethan, a marine biologist drawn to the coast's mysteries, and Sophia, a storm chaser whose thrill-seeking knows no bounds. We arrived just as the barometer plunged and the wind began to howl. Our van rattled up the narrow road carved into the cliff. Rain lashed the windshield. The beam from the lighthouse swung overhead in slow, mechanical arcs. The keeper's cottage doors swung open before we could knock. Inside, the sole occupant, an old man named Finn, greeted us with hollow eyes. "Welcome," he rasped. "You'll want to stay up here tonight. The storm isn't the worst of it." We stashed our gear, and as thunder shook the walls, Finn led us up the spiral staircase into the lantern room. From the narrow windows, we watched waves crash like furious beasts. He handed each of us a battered journal. "Read. Then listen." By flashlight, I opened the first journal. Its pages described strange flares beneath the water, glowing orbs that surfaced only during the fiercest storms. Crew logs from wrecked ships spoke of ghostly figures reaching for the light. Ethan flipped to a diagram, sketches of a humanoid silhouette, webbed fingers curling around rocks. "Some sort of deep-sea creature?" he wondered aloud, eyes enthralled. Sophia's phone buzzed with an incoming hurricane alert. Category 3, due directly overhead in 3 hours. Perfect conditions, she smiled. I shivered. Around midnight the storm peaked. We huddled behind thick glass as lightning illuminated the churning sea. Then, through a flash of lightning, I saw it, a pale hand breaking the surface, stretching toward the rotating beam. "Sophia, did you see that?" I gasped. She stared, breath caught. Ethan lunged for his underwater camera. But before he could lower the lens, the light went out, snuffed by the storm's fury. Darkness swallowed us. Finn's voice crackled over the ancient radio. Generators fried. You're on your own up there. The stairs trembled under the gale. We needed to restore power. Clutching flashlights, we descended to the generator room deep in the cliff's foundation. Water leaked through cracks. Steel machinery groaned like a dying animal. As Ethan checked fuses, a distant banging echoed, metal on metal, repetitive, urgent. Someone's down here, Sophia whispered. We trained our lights on the far wall, a handprint trail, dripping seawater, leading into a narrow tunnel cut by miners decades ago. Torches in hand, we pressed into the tunnel. The walls were slick, the air thick with salt and old decay. The banging grew louder until we emerged into a vaulted chamber hewn from stone. At its center lay a rusted cage, like a diving bell, half submerged in tidal water. Inside, dark shapes moved, 8 figures, clad in tattered oilskins, their faces hidden by tarnished helmets. They scratched at the bars, murmuring in drowned voices. Ethan stepped forward. They're miners, but how? A figure turned, revealing glassy eyes that reflected our lights. It raised a gloved hand, beckoning us closer. The journal's final entry blazed in my mind. When the lantern falls dark, the lost rise to claim the light. Finn's words echoed. Listen. From somewhere deeper, a low chant began, rising like the tide. The miners' helmets glowed with phosphorescent algae, their forms drifting in the water. One reached out a webbed hand as if to pull us in. Sophia's camera clattered to the floor. We backed away, hearts racing, and found the power switch, flooded but intact. With effort, Ethan flipped it back on. A hum filled the chamber as electricity coursed upward. The lighthouse roared back to life. A beam of pure white cut through the tunnel entrance, scattering the miners into the darkness like ash in a gale. The chanting ceased. The handprints on the walls faded as water receded. We sprinted back up the spiral stairs, rain lashing our backs. Finn met us at the top, eyes brighter than before. Thank you, he said simply. They needed the light. At first light, the storm broke. We stood on the cliff's edge, watching the battered sea calm to gentle swells. No trace remained of the submerged chamber, only driftwood and sea mist. Finn vanished before we could thank him again, leaving behind his journals and a hollow calm that settled in my chest. We left Hawkins Point with more questions than answers. In my footage, between thunderclaps, you can hear faint whispers, voices carried on the wind from that submerged chamber. Do the lost truly find solace in the light, or are they bound eternally to the beacon's glow? I don't know. But every stormy night since, I swear I feel those pale hands brushing against the glass, reminding me that some lights never go out, and some souls never rest. If this tale kept you at the edge of your seat, don't forget to subscribe for free and help me reach 1,000 subscribers, so we can unravel even darker mysteries together. May your nights be bright, and your fears well lit. Have you ever felt your reflection stare back at you with a life of its own? What would you do if every laughter around you turned into a silent echo, and the carnival lights blinked in time with your racing pulse? The midnight circus was whispered about in our town long before anyone had proof it existed. They said it only appeared when the moon was full, its tents stitched from shadows and its attractions crafted by unseen hands. No one had stepped inside and returned until one fateful October night. I'm Zane, a journalist hungry for the uncanny. With me were Mira, a sound engineer chasing ghostly harmonics, Theo, a skeptic photographer, and Leah, a folklore student who lived for lost legends. We arrived at the deserted fairgrounds at exactly midnight, drawn by a single, flickering neon sign that read, "Welcome to the Carnival of Echoes." The iron gates creaked as we pushed them open, revealing a half-circle of tents, each one taller and darker than the last. A single carousel stood in the center, its horses frozen mid-gallop. No music played, yet the gears turned slowly, as if on a clock winding down to doom. Leah held up a torn ticket. No one remembered buying it. It read, "Follow the echoes, and the show will unveil. But beware, every secret comes at a price." A cold wind swept through the grounds, carrying distant laughter that sounded both joyous and agonized. We first approached the carousel. Theo snapped photos, but every image he reviewed showed distorted faces in the mirrors behind the riders, faces that weren't ours. Mira placed microphones around the platform and recorded. In playback, we heard not horses' neighs but soft sobs, whispered pleas, and a faint melody that tugged at your chest. As the carousel slowed to a halt, the nearest tent flaps rattled open, as if inviting us into its depths. Inside the largest tent, mirrors of all shapes filled the space, their surfaces cracked and swirling. Each mirror reflected not the person standing before it, but someone else, sometimes a child in circus garb, sometimes a stranger screaming in agony. Mira pressed record. "These echoes, their memories trapped in glass," she murmured. We moved deeper until we found a cracked handprint on one mirror. When Leah touched it, the glass rippled, and her reflection dissolved into blackness. A voice, hers, but hollow, whispered, "Find me." Beyond the mirrors, a doll theater stage stood empty except for a single marionette, a clown with painted tears. Its strings dangled in midair, swaying even though no puppeteer stood at the back. Theo approached. As he reached out, the clown's head turned, its eyes gleaming. The theater lights snapped on to reveal dozens of puppets in seats, their heads bowed. Strands of thin wire snapped from the rafters and attached themselves to our wrists. We yanked free, but each puppet's head jerked upward, mouths opening in silent screams. We fled the tent, the echo of that laughter coiling around us like a noose. Outside, a section of earth had shifted, revealing a trapdoor beneath the carousel. Against better judgment, we pried it open and descended into darkness. Our flashlights revealed a tunnel carved in brick, an underground midway stretching farther than the carnival above. Torches and iron sconces lit themselves as we passed, illuminating abandoned stalls, the strongman's weight rings, the fortune teller's dusty crystal balls, the human cannonball's splintered cannon. Each stall held a name: Marion, Gustav, Cecilia, names of performers lost to time. At the tunnel's end stood a grand stage, empty except for a lone microphone. As Zane stepped forward, the mic crackled and a voice boomed. "Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please. Tonight's final act, the unveiling of your deepest fears." Spotlights snapped on, casting our shadows against the far wall. Only they moved on their own, twisting into grotesque shapes. One by one, the spotlights trained on each of us. Mira, trembling as her reflection whispered secrets. Theo, whose camera flickered with impossible images. Leah, whose tears formed patterns on the bricks. A hush fell. Then the trapdoor slammed shut above us. The puppets from the tent appeared, each jerking forward to take a place in a semicircle on the stage. Their wooden joints creaked as they brought forth our deepest memories, the moments that haunted us, Zane's guilt over a story that ruined lives, Myra's regret over a silence she kept, Theo's doubt that he'd ever capture truth, Leah's fear that legends would outlive her. We realized this carnival fed on our fears, weaving them into the show. Leah, voice steady despite tears, began to recite an ancient incantation she'd studied, a binding spell for restless echoes. The marionette clowns screeched and the lights flickered, but she continued. Mira captured the chant on her recorder. Theo aimed his camera at the stage. Zane held Leah's hand to lend strength. As the final words left Leah's lips, the puppets froze, then collapsed into piles of splintered wood. The trapdoor above us burst open, and we climbed out, stumbling into the moonlit carnival grounds. By the time the first light brushed the horizon, every tent had vanished. The carousel lay silent, its paint peeled, horses empty. No footprints led away, only our scattered equipment, and the echo of distant applause carried on the breeze. Leah retrieved her recorder. The incantation was intact, but just beneath her voice lay another whisper, soft and uncertain. "Will you return?" We never spoke of it again, at least, not out loud. But sometimes, when a mirror in my apartment catches the sunset, I swear I see a faint circus grin behind me. And late at night, I wake to the creak of a carousel that no longer exists. Have you ever watched the aurora borealis ripple across the sky, only to realize it's forming shapes, like faces? What would you do if the very ice beneath your feet began to whisper your secrets? Before we venture into the frozen wastes, a quick favor. I'm chasing 1,000 subscribers, and subscribing is completely free. If this tale chills your bones, tap that subscribe button so we can uncover even colder truths, together. They say Station Perseus was built in secrecy, a scientific outpost on the edge of Antarctica's vast plateau. Officially, it shut down in 1983 after a series of mysterious disappearances. Unofficially, satellite scans still detect faint signals pulsing from its depths. I'm Alex, a documentary filmmaker drawn to the unknown. With me are Malik, a glaciologist chasing climate anomalies, Simone, a communications engineer eager to restore Perseus's dead frequencies, and Hugo, a medic whose calm demeanor hides a fascination with the mind's darkest corners. As our ski-equipped plane touched down on the blue ice runway, the wind howled like a chorus of ghosts. We unloaded supplies and stepped toward the hulking metal structure, its exterior mottled with rust and frost. Inside, the vestibule was coated in a centimeter of crystalline frost. I wiped my gloved hand across the door panel. No heat, no power. Simone set up a portable generator, cables snaking into the station's entrails. As the lights flickered on, we saw long shadows stretching down a central corridor, lined with portholes sealed by ice. Pressure logs show the air systems failed on January 12, 1983. Malik noted, scanning his tablet. Exactly 42 years ago, tomorrow. A distant clang echoed through the halls. We exchanged nervous glances. Our next stop was the archive. Filing cabinets stood in neat rows beneath yellowing fluorescent lights. Hugo flipped open a cabinet drawer and gasped. Inside lay a single, frozen glove, human-sized, finger curled as if grasping something. On the desk, a reel-to-reel tape recorder clicked quietly, as though already playing. Simone pressed play. Distorted voices drifted through the speaker, scientists arguing about the shimmering and the watchers beneath the ice. I shivered. Play it again. This time, over the static, a clear whisper. They're here, and we're not alone. Malik's ground-penetrating radar showed a metal hatch beneath a storage room floor. We pried it open to reveal a ladder descending into darkness. Each rung iced over, our boots clinking with every step. At the bottom lay a cavernous silo, lit by emergency strobes. Hoses and cables draped like lifeless vines. In the center stood a cylindrical chamber, an observation pod encased in thick plexiglass. Something inside shifted. Simone's voice quivered. "There's something alive in there." I approached, breath fogging the glass. A face, frozen, eyes open, hovered just beyond the surface. Not a corpse, but a living form, cheeks pale, lips moving. "Help me!" Then the glass cracked. Red lights flashed as the station's emergency systems kicked in. The pod's door hissed open. Inside, the air was unnaturally warm, humid. We stepped in and the pod descended, sliding through an ice tunnel lined with veins of glowing blue crystal. The walls pulsed to a rhythm like a heartbeat. Hugo's heart rate monitor spiked. "This isn't geological," he whispered. "It's biological." A low hum filled the pod, vibrating our bones. Simone tried the comms, but her radio squawked only white noise, then a child's laughter. The pod came to rest in a vast chamber dominated by a soaring crystalline formation. Its facets refracted light into dancing rainbows. At its base lay motionless bodies, researchers from decades past, preserved like insects in amber. One researcher stirred. Her eyes snapped open, jet black, pupilless. She sat up, turning to face us with a smile that fractured her frozen skin. "We are the core," she crooned. "We are Perseus." She rose, steps echoing on the icy floor. The crystals around her throbbed, sending fissures of ice down the walls. We ran back to the hatch as the chamber's temperature spiked. Cracks snaked through the pod's walls. Simone hacked the control panel, overriding lockdown. Malik heaved the hatch door open above us, and we scrambled up as shards of ice rained down. Behind us, the pod imploded in a blast of blue light that flared like a star dying. The station's generator blew its fuse, plunging Perseus into darkness. We tumbled into the corridor, breathing hard, hearts pounding. At daybreak, the aurora borealis shimmered overhead in emerald waves. No sign of the crystalline glow, only the battered hatch and our footprints leading back to the plane. Simone replayed the tape again. Now the voices were gone, replaced by a single tone that mirrored the aurora's pulse. The station's logs had erased themselves. Malik gazed at the horizon. "What we saw, it wasn't human." I recorded my final journal entry. "Station Perseus is alive, something beneath the ice, feeding on research, on life. It called itself the core. And it's waiting." We flew away under the silent sky, the whisper of the wind carrying a promise. "Return when the pulse calls you home." Sometimes, when I close my eyes, I see that crystalline pulse in my dreams, beckoning me back to Perseus's frozen heart. If this expedition into the unknown left you breathless, don't forget to subscribe for free and help me reach 1,000 subscribers, so we can chart even more uncharted mysteries together. Until then, stay warm and watch the skies.